Hey folks, welcome to the VGS webinar. My name is Zal. We'll get started and let's give folks about a minute to join, and then we'll go ahead and get started. Awesome. So we'll go ahead and get started. Welcome to the VGS webinar. My name is Zal. Joined with me is our solutions architect, Rahul. I'll be doing a introduction around VGS, and then towards the end, Rahul will actually do a demo of the VGS product. What I'll do is to start, just set up the agenda. I've kind of already done the introduction. My name's Zal. I'm an account executive at VGS. I've been here for about 2 years. I've kind of seen the ins and outs here. I'm gonna walk through this agenda. Just some housekeeping to start. Then I'll walk through what it is that VGS does. Rahul will do a demo and actually give you an experience of what it is like to use VGS. And then we'll move to the questions and answers. So just to start, all participants are in listen-only mode. So if someone is, potentially saying, "Hey, Zal, I already have a question," I won't be able to hear you. This session is being recorded, so if there's something that you missed, don't worry about it. We can send you the recording afterwards. We will have time for Q&A at the end, but just to let you know, I'd like folks to be able to submit their questions so that I can have the chance to be able to address all the questions, and I'll be addressing them as like first come first served. And if there's any other questions after the presentation, please feel free to reach out to us at sales@verygoodsecurity.com. So let's start, right? VGS is essentially the safest way to collect, protect, and exchange sensitive data, right? So we're transforming the idea of creating a data secure environment and a compliant environment into an opportunity, right? No one starts a business to get audited. And how this company was born was both VGS both Mahmood and Marshall had started balanced payments. It was the first payments for marketplaces from the ground up. And after they were acquired by Stripe, they found that there was a lot of folks in their network that were asking them, how did they accomplish data security? How did they accomplish compliance? And to them, it was pretty straightforward, right? They were able to get an environment up and running. And what they didn't realize is, starting another company with data security is like starting 2 companies at once. So as you're launching more products, as you're launching, your go-to-market strategies, there's a lot of focus on being able to regularly maintain data security and compliance. So the focus here is that VGS sits as this transparent proxy service that makes no changes to your architecture and allows you to be able to launch products and complete your go-to-market strategy 16 times faster. So here's a great diagram to kind of just understand what the flow is from VGS. So whether you're collecting that data via a web form, a mobile app, through the phone, chat bots, at any point where there's a push and a get in your application, very good security sits as that transparent proxy, provides a safe alias that still looks and feels like the data on your applications, and you're able to send that data to any endpoint without putting yourself into scope. So a couple of different use cases that we have. One is to be able to fast track PCI compliance and card issuance. Knowing that we come from a payments background, it's pretty straightforward. So instead of spending 6 to 8 months trying to achieve PCI level 1, this is something that can be achieved with VGS within 21 days. We can multiplex to different service providers, whether that be a payment processor or an ID verification service, so that at the end of the day, you folks have ownership of your data, but you're not locked in as a vendor to a specific service provider. We can secure APIs, do background checks, KYB, KYC, storing credentials and passwords, and as I mentioned earlier, descoping calling centers and chatbots. So here's an example of just, one of the benefits of VGS is being able to fast track compliance, right? Going back to the statement, nobody starts a business to become compliant, to get audited, correct? So just an example of a certification that's instantly achieved with VGS is PCI level 2. So as I mentioned, there's no infrastructure changes. So you can get implemented with VGS within 30 minutes to an hour and immediately achieve PCI level 2. And then if you're looking for PCI level 1, where a third-party auditor is involved, that can be done in as fast as 21 days. So as we always mention, PCI level 1 is always 21 days away with VGS. Here's an example of one of our customers, LendUp, who was able to achieve PCI level 1 in under 30 days and dodged the pain of building the network, protecting the data, going through all the controls, monitoring the networks, making adjustments to their security policy, getting audited. They make the PCI requirements, 12 requirements online. So it seems like, okay, if I can complete these 12 steps, I am PCI compliant. There's actually a bunch of sub requirements within the requirements that you have to consistently check through, and your auditor is going to come on site and verify that your policies are what you're actually doing in your environment. So it's a very, very hefty process. With VGS, you automatically inherit an enterprise security posture, and you inherit all 20 controls that we provide. This is a great diagram of what it would look like to use VGS and what it would look like to not use VGS. So instead of having to go through and build this secure environment and go through the maintenance and the ongoing costs, VGS can save that 75% so that you're only focused on the core product that you're building versus the security and the compliance that essentially distracts your business. Here's a bunch of customers that are using VGS today. This will be recorded, so if there's any other, if this is something that you folks would be able to see, we're even happy to send this over. Here's the typical flow of VGS, right? I know I mentioned the flow prior, but this is where your front end, where your customers will be able to type in their data, whether in this example be through a form or a phone. VGS sits as that transparent proxy. So all you're doing is just selecting the fields that you want to secure from your server. As the data comes in, VGS replaces that data with the safe alias. And what I'd like to highlight here is that we're using an alias, not a token. If you're using a token, that means you have the ability to reveal that token to yourself, and which immediately puts you into regulatory scope. Whereas VGS uses an alias and takes the novel approach of ensuring that data never touches your applications. And because it never touches your applications, you're transitioning the responsibility and liability of the data to VGS, So as you're dealing with that data, VGS then sends that data on your behalf. So at no point do you have access to the data, therefore reducing the requirements to reach regulatory scope on your folks' end to none. Here's another example, being able to decouple business value from data security. Let's say you have a calling agent today, right, that is taking credit card numbers over the phone via Twilio or a Vonage or an Avaya. The way VGS sits is just as that proxy service that then, in an IVR case, right, over the phone, we transfer the customer, the agent from your folks' end will transfer the customer to the VGS robot that will then take in the card details. The robot will announce to the agent, here is the safe alias. You are able to type that safe alias into your environment, and VGS would be able to send the true data to, let's say in this case, you're verifying information with Experian, or you're sending it to a payment processor. So I'm going to switch gears here and pass the microphone and the presentation to Rahul. So give me 1 second.
Hi, everyone. So you should all be able to see my screen here. So I'm going to show you all today how to configure VGS to redact a piece of sensitive data before it ever reaches your backend. On the other side, when you need to send the sensitive data somewhere, how VGS can reveal that for you. And the example I'm going to use here is a social security number, but of course, what I'm going to configure here can apply to any kind of data. And another thing I'd like to add before we jump into this is that everything I'm going to show you here right now, you can try it yourself for absolutely free. What I have here is a sandbox vault in VGS. Anyone can sign up for that with a valid email. It's free to use to do this type of thing. It's do be aware it's not an actual secure vault, so don't put any real live data in here. But it's perfect for testing, and when you are ready for live data, contact us and activate. So the first thing I'm going to do is add an inbound route. So what I'm telling you here is that when there's incoming traffic, I want to filter out the social security number, replace it with an alias that is not sensitive at all. The first thing you'll notice in this screen is I've got this upstream host field. And in real life, if I would set this to my backend server, it would be the URL of my backend. However, for the purposes of this demo here, I'm going to use the VGS Echo server, and that's a tool we've published that basically whatever you send it, it sends you the same thing back. So it stands in for your API server. It's really convenient for debugging this type of thing. But for right now, the mental model I want you to make here is that this Echo server is standing in for your backend, and then I'm going to send it requests. I'm going to take on the role of a third party who is sending you sensitive data. Moving on, here's our filter configuration. So this is where I tell VGS where it's going to find the data in the request and what to do with it. So the first thing I'm going to do is match my endpoint here. I'm looking for requests that are going to the /post endpoint, that's the path info, and I'm looking for JSON. Note here that I'm going to show off JSON here, but we can work with XML via the SOAP API, or we can even just do a regex to find the sensitive data. Of course, we handle HTML forms as well. But anyway, I'm going to say that on the request phase, I'm going to look for the SSN field, and I'm going to redact it. The last thing to configure here is I'm going to take advantage of VGS's format preserving encryption or aliasing. So we can handle any kind of data. However, for some types of data that's convenience for you, we can preserve the format of the input data. So I'm going to choose the form preserving social security model. And what that means is that the alias I'm going to get back is going to be a different valid social security number. It won't be sensitive because I don't know whose social security number it is. It might not be anyone's. And the key thing is it's different from the social security number I was sent. However, it's still going to be a valid social security number in case in my database schema is expecting a valid social security number, or for whatever other reason I still want something in that social security number format. I'm still going to have that even though I don't have the sensitive data. Lastly, the last 4 digits are going to be the same. Those are less sensitive. If I still want in my own front end to tell my user that, hey, here's your last 4 social security number, please confirm, I can do that. without actually storing a social security number. So I'm going to show you now exactly what I mean here. So in my terminal, again, my terminal is standing in for your third-party sending you data. I have in hand a social security number. So if anyone's curious, by the way, this is one of the official test social security numbers. It's not my social security number. Anyway, I'm going to send it to the backend via the VGS reverse proxy. And the way I'm going to do that is using curl. Our URL is going to be the URL of the VGS vault. Include the /post endpoint. Set our content type header. Finally, let's make a request body here. As JSON, because that's what we specified. And so if you look what happened here, I sent a request to the reverse proxy. It got forwarded to the upstream host. So that's why you're seeing a response from the echo server. But most importantly, the social security number inside the JSON body got replaced. The last 4 digits, 1120, are still the same. The first 5 are completely different, or almost completely different. And so that's what I'm talking about here. I have a different social security number, not PI sensitive. If this echo server got hacked right now, the attacker would not gain any real social security number for any of my users. But now I'm free to do whatever I need with this. I can display the last word of my user still. If I need a third party, if I need to send this back to a third party and get them the real social security number, so let's say I'm working with a background check service and I need to send them a social security number so they can run a background check on my behalf, I can still get the real social security number to them, even though I have a fake one in hand. And the way I'm going to do that now is by using the VGS forward proxy. So let's go back to our dashboard here. So now in my routes, I'm going to add an outbound route. So again, I've got an upstream host field here. In real life, this would be the third-party host. So that would be, say, Checker, who runs background checks, or someone like them. Again, for this demo, I'm going to use the VGS Echo server, but we're going to tweak the mental model here. So earlier, I want you to imagine that the terminal was a third party and the Echo server was your backend. So they're going to flip it. Inside my terminal, that's standing in for your backend. I have that fake social security number in hand. The upstream host now is standing in for that third-party service who needs the real social security number. Configuration looks very similar to the inbound route. Let's pretend here the API format for this upstream host is the same as my API format. So that's why the configuration is going to look really similar. But note here that it is all configurable again, right? So if I have a JSON API, but the third-party service has a SOAP API, then in my backend, I can create the SOAP request and tell VGS, hey, on the outbound, we're going to use XML. We're going to look for the social security number in the XML body. But yeah, for simplicity, let's just use JSON again. So path info, the endpoint is still going to be /post. For JSON, it's going to be SSN again. And then again, the key difference is now on the request phase, we are revealing the sensitive data. Go ahead and click save here. So now before I move on to the curl command, just one thing to note is that to protect your data, we use HTTP authentication for the outbound route. You would go in settings here to generate those credentials. I've already generated those, I've downloaded them. Also, when you create a VGS vault for the first time, it'll show you your access credentials. So be sure to download those. If you lose them, you can make new credentials at any time by going to the settings tab here. But what I'm going to do right now is go to my terminal, which again, standing for your server, and generate that curl command. Now the philosophy here is we're going to send the data to this upstream host, but we're going to route it through the VGS reverse proxy. I'm going to show you how to do that using curl. Create my body here. So now my body contains a fake social security number. And finally, I'm going to specify the VGS proxy. So there's 2 flags I've added here. -K just tells it to ignore SSL for now, just to make using curl easier. -X lets you specify a proxy URL. So before I do this, cat my credentials. It's going to be a username. And the password. I made my outbound route URL now from the dashboard. So here we have it. I sent a request to the upstream server, which again stands for the third-party service. I sent the fake SSN VGS made for me. I routed it to the VGS forward proxy, and look what our upstream server got. Here's our original social security number from the very beginning. And so that's what I wanted to show you all, is how using VGS, you can collect a social security number, hold on to a token that corresponds to it, and then send the real social security number to a third-party service, all without your system ever seeing the real social security number. So that's all I have for you today. Thanks for watching, and back to you, Zal.
Awesome. So I'm going to use this time to answer any questions. There is a lot of questions here. I don't know if I'll be able to answer all of them. I'm just going to use the last 2 minutes to wrap up, so I have around 6 minutes. So one of the first questions here is, how are we different than Stripe? Good question. So Stripe is a payment processor that would give you one specific token to the credit card numbers that you're collecting. So by Stripe, you are PCI compliant. However, where the benefit of VGS comes is being able to take that universal token that VGS can provide you and take it to multiple payment processors. So today you wouldn't be able to necessarily take a token from Stripe and pass it to, let's say, Adyen or WorldPay. So what VGS allows you to do is take that universal alias and then route it to the payment processor of your choice, so that you can save on basis points. The next question here is, what is the difference between an alias and a token API? It's a great question. This is something that I had addressed earlier, but essentially with the token API, you have the capability of revealing that token API to your systems, which therefore puts you into regulatory scope. So VGS's mission is to become a zero data company, so that none of the data actually is seen by your applications, and therefore we've replaced the word token with a safe alias, because we're descoping your entire environment. The next question is different than tokens. Okay, that was awesome. Here's a good question. On the social security replacement, would that end user always have the same fake SSN as the replacement, or would it choose a new SSN with same last four each time? So this is very dependent on the use case, right? But the idea here is with VGS, we don't change any of the way that you do business today. So if you're looking at So let's say today you're storing social security numbers. You can format preserve them to store the last 4 and use that alias. And let's say you're passing it, in this case, the end user like Experian, VGS would reveal the true data on your behalf to a verified risk-averse partner like Experian on your behalf. Or you can use a randomly number generated social security number as well. So here's another question. This demo showed a lot of code. We need to use VGS for PCI compliance, processing multiple cards in a short amount of time. Okay. So in this case, what you would essentially do is if you're processing multiple cards and you want to be able to use VGS, all you're doing is just embedding the VGS collect product. We can send you specific details after this call, but you're just embedding the VGS collect, and then you're just whitelisting your IPs to point at VGS prior to sending those cards out. So it's just a 2-step process. We're happy to have one of our IEs set it up for you. As I mentioned, VGS doesn't change any of the architecture, so it's a pretty straightforward integration. You can literally log on to dashboard.verygoodsecurity.com and actually get up and running super quickly. I hope that helps answer that question. Another question is around speed. Great question. So we understand that VGS is a critical part of a company's infrastructure, and that's why we make sure our systems are airtight. We have specific SLAs that we commit to, and we can even share those SLAs to the call to you after this call. So typically the latency that we see is 10 to 15 milliseconds. So it's essentially operating in real time.
Yeah, one thing I want to add here to Zal's answer about the social security numbers, whether we will always make the same fake social security number, the same alias for the same user. So everything Zal says correct. Just what I want to add is that it's actually configurable in the VGS dashboard. So the default is that it will always generate the same alias for the same piece of data. And for most users, that's what they want, because that, again, enables you to continue operating your systems as though you never used VGS, as though nothing has changed. But if for some reason you do want a unique alias every time, we can also do that for you.
Thank you, Rahul. So we're wrapping up on the last 2 minutes, and there's a lot of questions, but what I can do is I can individually email the folks that have sent their questions. I apologize for not being able to address them. It's just, I'm looking at the questions right now. It'd take me at least an hour to kind of go through, but I'd be able to kind of quickly type them up and send them over. But I want to thank everybody for joining the call today. And if you folks have any additional questions, please feel free to reach out to us at sales@verygoodsecurity.com, or you can reach out to myself and give me a review, Zal@verygoodsecurity.com.